coming. Want to talk to you today about Bitcoin and superannuation, specifically self-managed super funds. I'll open up and tell you I'm unable to give you any advice. So don't take it from me. Don't, do your own thing. Don't trust me. Verify. I did all of this by myself. I'm here to tell you a story about what I did, how I did it, and how I feel about it now. So, nothing here is financial advice. You all know that, buying Bitcoin anyway. I started buying Bitcoin in about May 2020, and by August 2020, I was looking at a big pot of money in my superannuation fund, going, I wonder if I can spend some of this on Bitcoin. So I asked my super fund, can I? Will you? How do I do it? And they said, nah, we've got no plans for crypto investing. It's used by organized crime, terrorist groups. It'll be made illegal by governments. Basically, forget it, no chance. As soon as I'd closed the email, I had 4 questions. Can I invest my super in Bitcoin? And I found out, yes, you can. How do I invest my super in Bitcoin? Self-managed super fund. How do I make sure my funds are safe and secure? And I think, everybody in the room has superannuation. It's compulsory. It's money that is there. It's sitting in a super fund. I think every individual naturally trusts that their super fund is looking after their money in their best interests, and that it's the safest place for it, and that they're going to look after you, and it'll grow healthily, steadily over the course of the next 20 years until you retire. So stepping away from that and putting money or super funds into Bitcoin, I wanted to know that I could make sure that they were safe and secure, so I fell down that rabbit hole, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And what are the risks? Because are there any risks if it's sat in a traditional super fund? Well, yeah, of course there are. Like the UK pension system nearly collapsed a few months ago in October. If you look into how the pension system operates in the US, it's an absolute catastrophe and massively underfunded for futures. So is your money super safe in a traditional fund? Probably not as safe as you think it is. So very quickly, follow the bouncing ball, and I've got a link at the bottom. I put a website together that is a bunch of information that is a bit deeper than what I've put on the presentation today. But very simply, I used a product called eSuperFund, which is one of the self-managed super fund companies that helps. And it's a no-advice model, so they help you set up and follow the rules and do everything to the book. But they don't give you any advice, so they don't comment on how you invest, which suited me just fine because I was about to do something which most people would think is a bit mental. So I set up an account at eSuperFund. It's a very guided, follow the bouncing ball process to set up a self-managed super fund, but there are steps to take, and it does take a bit of time. There are people who can help you do it, but for most Bitcoiners, it's not massively complicated. It's just follow a bunch of forms and fill in the right things in the right order. They help you set up a company as a trustee for your self-managed super. There's a small fee for that, or a relatively small fee for that. You set up a company bank account. Again, they do that on your behalf. It's with ANZ in this particular instance. You then set up a Bitcoin exchange account, and one of the kind of very clear rules is no mixing your assets. So everything from your super fund has to stay separate from anything personal. So you don't go mixing your transactions or your pool of Bitcoin or any of that stuff. You have to keep it separate. So a completely separate exchange account. Once you've done all of that, you're ready to go. So you notify your employer or however you're receiving your superannuation contributions that you have a new super fund and it's your super fund, and they start paying into that. You can request a funds transfer from your super fund, Australian super in my instance, to move those funds into your self-managed super bank account. And then you can do what you want with it. Like, you don't have to put it into Bitcoin. You don't have to buy on the exchange. You can asset allocate however you want. You can buy stocks and shares, ETFs, property, wine, art, like anything you like. Property, as long as you don't live in it, unless it's a farm, in which case you can live in it. So that's one of the quirks of kind of self-managed super. But I took the decision to go 100% into Bitcoin. And when I set my self-managed super fund up, I stated the investment goals of the fund were 100% investment in Bitcoin and investing in the top performing asset class that's ever existed, provably. So I did. Then on a obviously monthly basis or fortnightly basis, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, just on the last one, why Unchained?
Oh, sure. So Unchained Capital's a multi-sig service. It's free for personal users. As part of addressing making sure my coins were safe and secure, Unchained offers a really great service to do that. The UI is fabulous. The reporting is really good. So when you come to audit time, providing reports from your holdings, it's really good that way. So it's for me, it was a really good solution. You can also take vault maps out of Unchained and start using Sparrow and do it that way. So there's no counterparty risk in using that method.
Do you have any affiliation with BitcoinSuper.io?
So that's the website I built to represent this. So
Your own,
yeah, it's just information. There's no, it's not a paid thing. It's just a bunch of information if you're interested in learning more. So.
Sorry, one other thing is.
Sure.
Like, can we combine super in this case so that we're like distributing the fees between the two of us? So you have to have separate self-managed?
No, so self-managed super, you can have multiple members, up to 5, I think.
Yeah, okay.
6. There we go, 6.
Okay. And so that would like distribute the fees amongst all of those people?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like I said, don't trust, verify, go work it out. But I can tell you my experience, but I can't obviously give you advice on it. So then regular buys, obviously you get paid your super contribution by your employer every month or fortnight or whatever schedule you're on. So I put 15% of my funds aside for tax. Now, if you're in a traditional super fund, often that tax is paid on a monthly basis or a contribution basis. In the instance of a self-managed super, you do it once a year. So you can always use those funds during the course of the year if you need to. I tend to just play it safe and put those funds to one side in my self-managed super bank account. And come tax time, I then pay the taxman what he wants off me, unfortunately. Smash buy Bitcoin, move it to cold storage. And then reconcile those transactions in a super fund. So that's just one of the kind of administrative steps you need to do every year for audit. So what are the risks? Well, my view of the risks are personal. I just went through my first audit last year. The auditor came back and said, you're 100% allocated. And I said, well, yeah, my fund says that that's what I'm doing. She said, but it's so volatile. And that's so risky. And I went, no, it's volatile, not risky. I understand the volatility, and therefore I'm accepting of that risk. And I think there's many risks with Bitcoin. We buy Bitcoin knowing those risks. The same rings true with investing into self-managed super. But that said, some of the points I touched on earlier. Sorry?
Sorry, by law, it doesn't matter whether you're invested 100% in Bitcoin or not.
No. No, she actually, I pointed out it's a no advice model with eSuper Fund as well, and thanks for the comment, but I don't need it.
SMSF has to have an investment strategy, and you dictate what that is.
Yeah, and which I did, 100% Bitcoin. So as I mentioned earlier, back in October 22, when I put my money into super, I was nervous. I'm moving a chunk of money, the largest pool of funds that I had, into Bitcoin, and I felt a bit nervous about it. I felt like I was, stepping off the edge of a cliff a little bit. But I can promise you now, 2-ish years later, looking back, it feels much more risky to me to consider going back the other way, for a bunch of these reasons. And these are recent. There is an article every single day of the week in the AFR talking about the government wanting some of your super funds, or a problem with the banks. Or back in October last year, literally it was hours from collapse. The gilt market blow up. Unless the government had stepped in, everybody in the UK could have lost their pension funds. And that pension pot is, it's what, 7 trillion, 8 trillion dollars, and it was literally on the brink of collapse, and everyone would have been destitute. So when anyone asks me, like, are you crazy putting 100% of your Bitcoin in self-managed super? Well, maybe, but it's in self-custody Bitcoin. So that money is out of the super fund, and I have those keys, and I look after my pension pot, and every month I'm adding to those funds. So 37 months of story. I was thinking about super into Bitcoin for quite a while. I moved my super into a self-managed super fund and bought Bitcoin. So I thought I was a genius pretty quickly because the bull run started happening. It dipped a little bit. I went, oh, shit, what have I done? And then I thought I was Michael Saylor because it hit all-time highs. And then it didn't. And I went, oh, fuck. And it started coming back again. And I went, oh, thank God for that. Oh, go fuck yourself. And then cheap sats. And now we're heading back to the moon, so I was quite happy. So I've got a bunch more information, like frequently asked questions, a bit more detail in terms of how I've set up with Unchained Capital and how I set all of my keys and everything else up. So it's all there to consume and look at and learn from, but happy to take any questions.